Please use the Q&A section for asking any questions you might have during the session, and we will do our best to answer them during the webinar towards the end. So to tell you a few things about Kunal, as I have already mentioned earlier, uh, Kunal is the founder and CEO of Analytics Vidhya. He is a data science evangelist and he has a passion for teaching practical machine learning and data science. He has worked with several clients and helped them build their data science capabilities from scratch. Before founding AV, he worked at top companies like Capital One and Aviva. He has seen the data science field evolve over the last 15 years and holds a wealth of experience that is unparalleled. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Kunal to talk about career opportunities in data science. Over to you, Kunal.
Thanks, Yashna. Just a quick check. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Kunal.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone, and great to see all of you joining from various parts of India and across the globe. So large welcome, and it was really heartening to see people from various parts and various time zones. So quite a few of you are actually burning the midnight oil. So that's really great to see. What I would just do is, I'll very briefly touch about what are the career options in, data science in general. It's a fairly interactive session, right? So the idea is to be as interactive as possible. If you have any questions, post them in the Q&A section as opposed to chat, right? So I'll just use chat for interaction and then Q&A tab for specific questions, because it will become very hard to take questions from chat specifically, right? So from that perspective, use the Q&A tab instead of chat for asking any questions, right? So just a quick sense of who all are there. So how many of you are graduated and how many of you are still in college? And then if you are still in college, which year are you in? Or so are you a second year, third year, final year graduate? What stream? So if you could just great. So third year, final year, still in uni. Final year, great. Someone in job. Great. So looks like quite a few people in their third year, final year. Oh, great to see someone who has just joined. So someone who has just started as well. Great. So then I think what I plan to speak is fairly spot on. How many of you are have already decided that they want to build a career in analytics and data science, and how many of you are still thinking about it? So are you on verge, or have you already started? Are you still exploring? And if you are still exploring, what options are you exploring? Graduated in 2019, decided, still thinking about it. Deciding between cloud and data science, great. Have started, still thinking about it. Want to explore. Great, R&D. Great, final year, decided and started doing something. Great. So quite a few have already started. I guess some of you are still thinking or exploring, and some of you are evaluating between different paths, like someone mentioned cloud versus data science. So that's great. So what I'll do is quickly walk you through some of the career options in data science. And I'll try and keep it very, very simple in terms of what these roles are, what skills do they need. And I'll take questions. So I'll cover this part in, let's say, next 20-25 minutes, and then we'll take questions, right? Before we start, I think it's great that quite a few of you are thinking about this very, very proactively in terms of career, and then want to explore. So it's always very energizing to come back to students and interact with students who are looking to build their career, right? So just a bit about my journey before we get on to the data science role. So I passed out of IIT Bombay back in 2006. I studied aerospace engineering, both bachelor's and master's, right? So if you have a question that whether someone from a mechanical stream or chemical stream can switch, you definitely can, right? So I transitioned from aerospace engineering back in 2006. In fact, at that time, data science was not even a term, right? So the field was in general referred to as analytics. Worked across countries, mostly in banking and financial services industry for 8 years before starting Analytics Vidhya. And in 2013, I started Analytics Vidhya as a blog, and then quickly I realized that I could create a much bigger impact doing it full time. And since 2014, I've been doing it full time. Uh, so for those of you who have decided, who that they want to build a career in data science, what do you have any specific role in mind? So let's say, do you want to be a data scientist, a data engineer, a business analyst, and if so, what was the reason, and why did you choose that particular stream? Data scientist. Rias is data scientist. I want to know enough of each role. Great, we'll cover that, Mohammed. Data scientist, I love ML modeling. Great. Student of BCA. I want to be an ML engineer. Great. Computer vision engineer. Uh, Masters in astrophysics, machine learning engineer, researcher. Great. NLP, ML engineer enthusiast, AI engineer. Uh, Great, good. So it's actually good to see the mix. So quite a few of you are looking to become a ML engineer, and then some of you are interested in becoming a data scientist. Some of you also mentioned analyst. So and then what is very interesting is some of you are looking at very specific areas like NLP and vision. So so what I'll do is I'll quickly cover a very high level overview in terms of what career options are available, what are the skills which you need in each of these career options, and then we'll come to the exact questions you might have. So I'll just share my screen, and then let me know once it comes up. And Harshit, Yashna, I'll not be able to see the chat or Q&A while I'm sharing the screen. So if there is anything you want me to pick up during the talk, feel free to interrupt and let me know. Yeah,
Sure, Kunal.
sure. Great. So we'll start exactly with the question which I was asking, right? So more very often people are not clear about what these different designations mean, what skills do they mean, and what do they mean for their career journey, right? And to explain this, I'll just start with a very simple analogy, right? So let's assume that you have joined and a very exciting electric vehicle startup, right? Ola is probably building one at this stage, or Minivan, and you have joined them as a HR manager, right? So it's a very fast growing setup, and what you have to do is essentially as a HR, you have to set up these different roles and job families, right? So let's assume that there are these three job families: a scientist, engineer, and management, right? So if that is the case, uh, just 1 second, just give me, sorry about that. Yeah. So for a minute, let's assume that these are the three families you need to define the roadmaps and creating job families into. Uh, in this case, and let's look at which people would you map these people to, right? So what you see on the screen are three people with three different designations, right? So there is a person who is uh, researching to build a better version of electric engine. So that's person A. Then there is a person who is building automobiles for the customers, right? And making sure that the maximum automobiles are manufactured in a given time frame, and they are supplied to the customers as soon as possible. And then there is a person who is building the business plan, thinking about what inputs do you need, how many batteries can you produce, and then building a plan around it. So which person would you map to which of these families? So these were the three families, right? Scientist, engineer, and management, right? So out of these three people, A, B, and C, who is scientist, who is engineer, and who is management person, right? So it's not rocket science. I'm sure quite a few of you would have answered it. I can't see chat while I'm presenting the screen, but it's very clear, right? So a scientist is a person who would essentially take a very specific problem and then try and improve that in terms of can you build a better engine, can you bring in more efficiency. So this person is working on a specific problem and trying to build a better version of it, right? And then the role typically involves researching a lot about a particular problem, what is available right now, how can you improve. On the other hand, an engineer is someone who takes this, whatever the scientist has produced, and puts it into production. And the management is essentially who is running the business based on the data, based on the numbers, and then making key business decisions, right? And if you understand these three roles clearly, you can very easily apply this analogy to the data science world, right? In general, scientist is a person who would work on very specific, complex problem, which gives very high impact on business. So these scientists would work on only a few problems, and but each problem, once they make a breakthrough, would have a huge impact. Engineers on the other hand ensure that the machinery or the infrastructure continues to run in a very efficient manner, and whatever research the scientists are doing can be implemented in production. And management ensures day-to-day decision making, right? So the same thing can be So the same thing can be applied into data science, data engineer, and business analyst. So data scientists are typically roles who are working in these complex environment, solving these specific problems. For example, a data scientist at Twitter would be looking at what is the right order of serving the Twitter feed. Data scientist at YouTube would be working on what is the right set of recommendations. Once they found this algorithm, the data engineer would take this and implement this into the production environment, right? So from a data engineer perspective, the key concerns would be where is the data flowing from? What is the speed in which this data is flowing? So is it coming in real time? Is it coming in batches? Are different sources in sync? And then how do you feed these different inputs into a, let's say, machine learning model to give out? And then the business analysts are people who are using data to take day-to-day business decisions. So what is the, for example, in case of let's say automobile startup, how many cars would you produce, what do you need, how can you improve the efficiencies? So those are the questions which an analyst would look at. So typically analysts would forecast, they would look at data to take business decisions, right? So that's a good way to look at these three job families, right? The only caution is these are used slightly loosely in industry, and it also depends on your specific organization or company. Because if it is, let's say, a startup, you would see very frequently that the role of a data scientist and data engineer might merge, or the role of a data scientist and a business analyst could merge. So with that context, there could be differences. But in general, when you say a data scientist, a data engineer, and a business analyst, this is what you mean. So data scientists typically focus on building these predictive models or machine learning models. Data engineers build these pipelines, make sure that the inputs of these models are in place, and then they make these models live in the production environment. And business analytics or business analysts use data to drive day-to-day business decisions. For example, how many people do you hire? What is the expected performance from them? Is there any business segmentation which they can use? How to forecast demand in future, right? So that's a good way to understand these families. Right. So let's take a few examples and then see, whether you can map. So let's say there is a role and you want to build a business plan to decide how many employees would a bank need in 2021, right? So post COVID, a bank is looking at, how many employees would they need in that year, right? So which family do you think would be best suited for these kind of roles, right? So assuming these are the three families, which family would this belong to? Let me see if I can make that chart. Business analyst, correct. So this is a typical scenario for a business analyst, right? So you're given a business context and you need to essentially make some assumptions. You need to come up with some reasoning to come with a forecast. Let's take a second scenario. You have to build a model to predict whether a particular transaction for a bank is fraudulent or not, right? So you're getting huge amount of data. It's a very, very specific problem you're solving. And as people are saying, it's basically a work which typically a data scientist would do, right? And as you could see, if a data scientist can make even a 0.1% improvement for a bank, right? For the huge amount of transactions which happens, this could easily create an impact of millions of dollars for that bank, right? So that's a good example of data science, right? Now, let's say you're working in a cab company, and then your data science team has built an algorithm which matches which cab should be served to which customer, but you have to implement it on the production system, right? And then the questions you need to think are, how would the data flow? Which data should flow in real time? Which data should flow in batch, right? So for example, the location of the customer, that has to flow in real time. But the segment of the customer or segment of the driver, what kind of car are they driving, that can go in batch mode, right? So you don't need to have a real mode. And this is typically the kind of questions a data engineer would like, right? And just fourth example, that let's say if the debts are increasing, uh, given the current macroeconomic situation, things which are happening, let's say in US market, uh, how much bad debt would rise, right? So this is a problem which even an analyst could solve, and most likely it would fall under business analyst. But you could also look at a data scientist, depending on how much impact would this problem create. So if you think that this is very critical for a business, right? So for a bank, this would be something which is a life or death, right? For an automobile company, this is not going to be so much of a difference. So depending on how much context, you could either assign a data scientist or a business analyst, right? So that's different families, right? And as I said in the last example, right, you could have you could solve the same problem by different solutions. So the underlying techniques could be different, but the you could be solving the same problem, right? So for example, if you have to predict which is the next best product a customer would buy, a business analyst would do a segmentation, or can come up with a rule-based solution, right? So if a person is, let's say, going to college, is between 18 to 25 years of age, they would probably use a credit card which caters to their need. A person who is, let's say, 30 years or more in age would have some more travel needs. So a business analyst would solve the same problem using segmentation or rule-based solution. On the other hand, a data scientist could create a far more granular machine learning model to solve the same problem, right? So ultimately, both of these are ways to solve the problems, right? Uh, Now, the natural question you might be asking, and then I could also see this in the chat, that is programming important for data scientists? And then that's where I'm going to. So as you can expect, right? So each of these roles need different skills, right? So for a data science position, you need to ensure that you are good with mathematics, you are good with algorithms, you need to know programming. There is no way you can do this without programming. However, the focus is not on writing highly efficient code for production environment, right? So for data scientists, think of it as a proof of concept. So if you could solve a problem in a environment where you're not working in the live production environment, that's good knowledge for data scientists. But you would need to know programming. There is no way you can be a good data scientist without knowing or without being good at least one programming language, right? In addition to these programming language, you will need to understand these techniques, you will need to understand various algorithms, statistics, right? Uh, for data engineers, the focus would shift on how do you make this program very specific, right? So things like data structure, programming, cloud computing, infrastructure, and understanding of how these machine learning algorithms work. How much can they be, deployed in real time? Can they be deployed in batch mode? Is something which you would answer or question as a data engineer, right? And then typical projects would look like building a data pipeline. Some of the common tools are Airflow, Spark, Hadoop, SQL, obviously. And then there are, business analysts. Here you would need a very good understanding of the business. So domain knowledge becomes very critical. It is critical for data science as well, but it becomes a lot more critical for business analysts, because you'll run various business simulations, planning. You'll almost help your management team take decisions on a day-to-day basis, right? So, and some of the most common tools are, Excel, Tableau, SQL, Python, right? So again, these are what are the most common expectations. There would be overlap in terms of the languages. Right now, Python is by far the most popular language. So if you are a complete beginner, you can start with Python, right? Having said that, always keep in mind that language is a way to solve a problem, right? So if you have already, let's say, learned R, or you can do, for example, some of this machine learning on Go, that's perfectly fine, right? What you need to know is one programming language and be able to solve those problems. Because if, for example, you are applying for a company and they need Python, you can very easily pick Python. What is more interesting is essential, or what the companies would look for is typically your understanding of these techniques, and then how do you solve these problems, right? So these are the different job families. What are the skills required? uh, just a few things to keep in mind, right? Data science and data scientist positions growing at a very fast pace. Typically, the salaries would be 50 to 100% higher than business analysts. Business analysts, on the other hand, would are a lot more in demand because every business needs lot many more business analysts than compared to data scientists, right? And data engineers are increasingly becoming more and more popular. And again, in terms of salaries, it would be comparable to what data scientists get, right? So, how do you make a decision? What's the right career path for you, right? So what I would say is ask yourself a few questions, right? So for example, you should ask yourself that what is the key background, what is your background, right? So do you come from mathematics and computing, economics, engineering, and these are guidelines, right? By no means these are definitive answers, right? I was an aerospace student. I ended up being in data science, so these are guidelines, but these could be good questions to ask to yourself, and basis the answers you can then take a decision very quickly, right? So similarly, what do you want to be in future, right? So in future, for example, do you see yourself as a person who is hands on, and then who could do tech entrepreneurship in future, or do you see yourself in strategy roles? That's something which is very, very critical. Similarly, what are your strengths? So are you a problem solver? Do you really enjoy coding? If you do that, then data engineer is probably a good strength, right? For people who so someone mentioned that they are economics graduate, you could consider either data science or business analytics as a option, right? And then all of these roles would require logical problem solving, stakeholder management, cross functional projects, high attention to details, right? So in that sense, uh, those are required across, but depending on the background, depending on your strengths, you could choose the link. Right. Again, if you have less data, usually business analytics is the preferred solution. If you have more data, then data science can become very, very interesting. This is again a typical roadmap which we use for our black belt and business analytics program. We'll circulate this, or we can take this up in the Q&A section. So with this, let me just stop sharing my screen, and then I'll take up question and answers in the which would have come up in the Q&A window. Right. So does this quick check? Does this help in terms of understanding different roles? Any? So if you have any questions, start posting them in the Q&A section, and then I'll take it from there. Okay, so first of all, so there is a question about the program. Is it a paid program? No, it's not a paid program. The idea behind this program is to give students an opportunity to come into data science, right? So what you'll get is a course which provides you everything you need for a career in data science. Once you have done that, there would be a hackathon at the end of it, and top 20 people from the hackathon would get opportunity to intern in Analytics Vidhya. And additionally, there would be some gift vouchers to top, I think, 5 people on the leaderboard, right? So the intent is only to help as many people as possible, right? Uh, Sure. So let's move forward. I'm just looking at chat. So there is someone who is circulating a WhatsApp group. This is not a analytics with their WhatsApp group. Just wanted to call out this. So feel free to join only on your own decision. This is not an official analytics with their group. Uh, Coming to the next question, how a fresher can get a job in data science? Because job notification, I saw at least 3 to 5 years of job experience, right? So here are a few things you can do, right? So first of all, uh, internship is a good way to break this problem, because companies are far more open to join you or take you as interns without having a similar bar on experience. So that could be a potential way. If you are switching from one industry to another, and then you are only looking for, let's say, a specific uh, uh, full-time job, and you can't take up internship for some reason, then what you should do is, on one side, do learning, on the other hand, start building your portfolio of projects, right? And then apply these learnings to various problems. And then again, hackathons could be a very good way to do it. Taking projects, let's say community projects or open data projects, could be a very good thing. If you are already working somewhere and you have access to a data set and a business problem, you could do that for that business voluntarily as well, right? So the idea is to show any company that you can solve these problems independently, right? And then again, hackathons, you would have a lot of data sets available in open, so that's a very good way to solve that, right? So that those are some of the ways in which you could circumvent that experience question. Typically, companies who are looking for freshers would not have this requirement, but if you are already in a job and you want to switch, then this challenge can come. How can we transition to analytics with a civil engineering background? I'm currently working with Microsoft Power Platform. I am able in dashboard design, data modeling, but would like to have an introduction of my transition to analytics and opportunity. Great. So Shivani, you are in a good position to, because you have access to data, you understand the business problems, so you could also see what are the questions the business would be interested in, right? So what I would do if I was in your position, I would learn machine learning and data science, even basics, right? Even if you learn, let's say, regression model, can you apply that to solve a problem and show some results to your business? If you can do that, you'll automatically transition into analytics and data science, right? So what you should do is learn on one side, and on the other side, be on the lookout, because you already have access to data, you already have access to these business users, and find the opportunity when they would need answer to a specific questions, and then go for it, right? So let's look at the next question.
Kunal, there is a question from a friend. Uh, uh, can you suggest me some good real-world project in machine learning so that I can add it?
Can you suggest some? Sorry, your voice was breaking.
Some machine learning project.
Some machine learning project. So if you're completely new, right, the best way would be to go to some of these practice problems on data hack on analytics with it, right? So that's a good place to start, where you'll have problems like, loan prediction problem. Would a bank give loan to a person or not? Similarly, there would be a demand forecasting problem, right? So those are good places to start. Once you have let's say participated in 2-3 of these practice problems, you can then look out for some of the live hackathons and competitions which are happening, right? So even the course, for example, which we are offering, takes the same approach. It will teach you on 2-3 different data sets in the course, and then we'll do a hackathon in the end, right? So the same approach you can take. So you can work on multiple problems which are listed there on data hack, and then you can take it from there, right? So that's one thing. If you're looking for open projects, there are again quite a few open data sets which are available, and that's something which you can use. For example, again, COVID is one example. There are a lot of social data sets which are available, things like accident. For example, one of the students I met recently, what he had done was he took accidents data from the government site, and he had created a very nice visualization in terms of where are some of the places where the accident frequency is high, and what could be some of the proactive measures which could be done to avoid those accidents. So that's just one example of how you could use some of the open data to create these projects. Right. What coding program need to know so this I have already answered. So Python is usually the most recommended language. So you can do. So can we say that scientists this is, you get slides for revision later? You'll get the slides, so you can look at them later. I think I've covered the differences. I do not have a business background, but I'm interested in business analyst. So Shivani, you can become a business analyst irrespective of your background. You have to be curious. You have to be willing to understand the underlying, business priorities, data. What do they want to achieve? But it's fairly possible. Harish is asking data science career option in retail sector FMCG as a fresher. How should I go about it? So, Harish, so first of all, you should just ask yourself why take FMCG as a preferred sector, right? Because early in your career, you could be a lot more open, right? So any domain you can enter in data science, and you can always transition into other domains, right? So until unless, for example, you already have some experience or you've done some internship, you should ask those questions before making a decision. Number one. If you still decide because of any of those reasons, what I would say is use your expertise or past experience, right? So if you have done an internship at let's say Walmart or Walmart Labs, based on that, what can you do to pitch for a data science role in Walmart Labs, right? So what were some of the problems you saw? Was it market basket analysis? Was it customer attribution? Marketing attribution is a big problem in retail sector. Uh, so if you want to go for a very specific role, then you'll have to take a very specific approach as well, right? But as a fresher, I would typically tell people that don't limit your options until there is a good underlying reason for it. Will statistics be covered? Statistics would be covered as part of the course which you are getting. Usually for the role of data scientist, there is requirement for 5 to 6 years. So this I've already covered. You can cover that gap through projects, demonstrated work. You'll get PDF slides. How are these different? You said you worked in financial statement. What is the role of a data scientist in this sector? Right. So a data scientist typically in banking and financial services would, for example, one focus on predicting who are, let's say, more risky customers. So can you predict that in advance, right? Can you solve whether a particular transaction is fraud or not? So fraud is another big example of application. Then marketing analytics. So where do you invest in your marketing to get more customers is another example. So again, my own experience. So I first worked in risk analytics. So collections and how do you ensure that people don't default on their loans. Then I worked on marketing analytics. Post that I'd worked on in insurance sector. So which customers would pay their retention, and then how do we hire more agents. So all of those kind of problems are some of the problems which people work in the financial sector. Harsh is asking, where to learn BI tools free? So Harsh, the best thing is, there are some free courses available on Analytics Vidhya. There are YouTube channels you could refer to, and then you could start applying those to create business insights. Right. Good thing with BI is you have to be curious. You have to bring out the insights and make them actionable. So any tool, you'll have a lot of resources available online. As I said, there is a free Tableau course on Analytics Vidhya. There is a free Power BI course on Analytics Vidhya to start. You could also look at some of the YouTube channels, etc. as well. Shivam is saying, I am a BSc graduate, non-technical. Which program is best for me? I'm trying to learn Python from beginning. So Shivam, if you are complete fresher, BSc graduate, that's what I'm presuming, then a program like our data science bootcamp could be a good program. But that's a paid program. Even a free program like the one which we are doing could be a good starting point, right? You have to learn Python. You have to, learn some visualization tools, SQL, in order to get to a job-ready state, right? So, for example, the roadmap on our bootcamp program is like that. We'll start with Excel, Power BI, then move to some visualization projects, SQL, and then we'll take up Python, statistics, EDA, and then machine learning, right? So by the time you're doing machine learning, you could do exploratory data analysis on these projects. You could do feature engineering. You could get to answers using statistics. So you could almost use the same approach towards this. Having 5 years of experience in power sector and want to career transition. Is it possible? Utkarsh, it is definitely possible. It will take typically 12 to 18 months, depending on how much you are comfortable with coding and how quickly do you pick up these topics, right? My only advice is, if you have decided to make the switch, try and make it as soon as possible, because as you gain more experience, it will become more and more difficult to make the switch. How to enter into internship as a fresher? So, in general, as I said, do learn the topics, do projects, and start applying. There are several internships which I've seen various companies offer on Internshala or some of these internship portals. Analytics Vidhya is offering one through this program. You could also attend some of the industry programs which are happening. Just taking an example, so there is an event which Analytics Vidhya is doing with Fractal 1729. At the end of the event, there would be internship opportunities with Fractal. So that could be other way you could explore. How many number of projects we can do in training? So Kushagra, usually in data science, right, it's not about number of projects. It's about quality of projects which you do. So, what would benefit you more is doing a few projects, maybe 2 or 3, but do them really well, right? So you need to have answers to why you took a particular approach. What other approaches did you try? What are the different alternates which you explored before you zeroed in on a particular algorithm? So be more curious, explore as many options as possible, and do a few projects really well as part of these courses or trainings, because it's not as much about number of projects as it is about doing those projects well, right? Azak Mohammed, just requesting, you have circulated the links. If people are interested, they'll join. But I would just request to not post them again and again. Nagin, can I add summer certificate? Yes, you can. Coding is my weakness. Can you please guide how to improve, right? So Utkarsh, think of coding like a muscle, right? The more you practice, the better it would become, right? So if you go to gym on day one, you'll always struggle. The same thing applies for coding, right? When you'll do it initially, you will struggle. But as you understand the landscape, as you practice more, you will become better at it. Because good thing with coding is there is absolutely no rocket science. You all you need to do is take a problem, break it into small parts. Because when you give a code to machine, it will always act in a very specific manner, right? So as long as you know what you want to do and you can break it down into small parts, coding is just a way to execute it, right? So think of it in that way, right? So a good analogy, for example, I tell people to think is, assume that you're talking to a friend, and then your friend cannot understand uh, any ambiguous direction. You have to give that friend a very specific direction. That's what coding does for machine learning, right? So it gives very specific direction to the computer to essentially execute these commands. So there is absolutely no challenge. So just practice and practice in a structured environment. Go through a structured course, and then just apply those learnings and again. There is absolutely no reason why you'll not be able to pick up coding. How do we get certificate after this internship? Is there any attendance? So just to be clear, we are giving a course. Basis that course, there would be a hackathon. At the end of the hackathon, the top 20 people in the hackathon would get a chance to get into internships. So there would be final rounds of interviews, or a behavioral interview to see what do you want to achieve from the internship. If you clear that and you do internship with Analytics Vidhya, there would be a certificate which you definitely get. You'll anyway get a course certificate for the course you have done. During internship, would there be any attendance requirement? Yes, there would be. Any internship in Analytics Vidhya requires you to do that internship full time. Or if there is an option to do remote internship, but there also you would be expected to work for at least 3 hours on a daily basis, right? So that's how internship usually works at Analytics Vidhya. Is the program comfortable for beginners? It's actually meant for beginners. Can you tell more about data analyst? So, Utkarsh, if you could ask specific question, I can answer that specifically. I'm working as a embedded firmware. I want to work as a data scientist with TinyML. Can you talk about it and provide roadmap on the same? Currently, I'm studying machine learning and your blogs. Great. Thanks, Nishal, for using Analytics with our blogs and mini projects. I think you're already in the right direction. What I'll say is, before moving into TinyML, make sure that your fundamentals about deep learning are clear. You understand how, let's say, tensors work in the backend, how the data movement happen, etc. Because when you come into edge computing, typically that plays a lot of role to understand, how many bits can you process, how much can you do. On TinyML, there are again very specific tutorials. That's a good starting point. If you have any specific question, feel free to reach out to us. We will help you out with the specific resources. Is it possible to get into data engineering role as a fresher if I have certifications in this field? Definitely, Divakar. Again, in terms of specific certifications, so SQL skill is a must. Python programming is a must. Cloud certifications could be very, very helpful. So that's something which you should look at, and if you have those, that you should be able to get into data engineering roles. Could you please suggest a good budget laptop for DS and ML students? So again, what I would say is any laptop with, let's say, i5 processor, 16 GB RAM, and SSD is something which should work for you. If you don't have, let's say, 16 GB RAM, 8 GB RAM should also work. If you don't have such a powerful laptop today, you could work on Collab as a platform, right? So laptop is no longer a hurdle. You could go on Collab, you could work out of a browser, solve the problems on the browser. At least for the start, that should be good. Once you know exactly what area are you working on, because the laptop for machine learning could be different from a laptop for deep learning. So what I would say is, for the start, you could rely on Collab as a platform, or there are quite a few platforms you could use. Once you start doing more intense calculations, that is when you should invest in the program. In the laptop. I am BSc Data Science student. Very soon I'm going to attend for placements. Currently, I know very little bit coding. I have good knowledge of R, Python, and Tableau. Any suggestions for me to get placed? So what I would recommend is, at this stage, don't try and learn new language, right? So you already know R, Python, and Tableau. That is more than sufficient for a learner. What you should do is apply these to solve more problems, maybe participate in a few hackathons, and focus on application, right? So if you have solved a particular problem, can you narrate that in Tableau in form of a good dashboard? Can you present that? So work a bit more on maybe your storytelling. How do you present it? And that typically ends up being very, very useful for interviews. The other thing which I would say is, practice different forms of interviews before the interview drive, right? So there are the most common interview format is guesstimates. So run a few guesstimates. If you could search online, there would be a guesstimate. You could, find a few questions, practice them before the interviews, and that would be very, very. I'm currently working as R&D engineer in embedded systems. Want to transit into career vision. Great. So, Raj, what I would say is, start with the fundamentals of deep learning. Again, what you need to see is, can you find a common ground between the work you are doing right now and the work you want to do in future? And then there are some very interesting bits. For example, edge based vision devices. That could be a very interesting area. So look at that, and then depending on whether you can find that specific problem, you could actually start looking at it as extended research starting today itself. How to prepare for a hackathon or competitive competitions. Saksham, I've already answered this. Participate in a few once before. So start with practice problems. Once you've done a few practice problems, that is when you can participate in actual hackathons, and that should give you a good example. Puneet is asking, he's interested in boot camp. Puneet, so what I would say is, share your profile with me. I'll have a look into it, and then we'll give you specific feedback if you're not receiving that. I've already done data science course where I can get free projects to do. I'm interested in doing the projects. So again, I've answered this multiple times. Hackathons is a good place to start. Is the course helpful for people working in Azure technology? So the course which we are offering, that's almost technology independent, right? So you could do it in Azure, you could do it on AWS, you could do it on GCP, you could do it on your own machine. So it's technology independent. What we are teaching is the techniques and how to solve the problems, and that's what you should also focus on.
Kunal, sorry to interrupt you in between, but we are running out of time right now.
Sure. I think we are. I'll just scroll through the remaining questions. I guess I've answered most of the major themes which were there. So I'll actually just conclude, right? So just a few concluding thoughts, right? So focus more on understanding the fundamentals as opposed to focusing on the tools, right? If you know one language, that's good enough. Apply that to solve problems. Participate in hackathons, competitions. That's a good way to test your skills, right? And the more you do it, the better you will become. There is absolutely nothing which any one of us is capable enough to solve these problems. Do that and do that again and again, and I'm sure you'll be able to solve through these problems, right? So again, thanks a lot of you. All the best for the program which you are taking. It's a very interesting program, and as I said, the only intent is to make sure that you guys benefit for your career. We at Analytics Vidhya, we are on a mission to create next generation data scientists, right? So that's the intent, that each of you should be able to build your careers and at some point give back to the community once you have built your career. So all the best, and all the best for the program from
Thanks,
you.
Kunal, for your
Yeah.
thanks for
Yeah,
your time and sharing your wisdom with the community. And thank you everyone for joining in. So if you have any other queries, you can post it on the machine learning summer training discussion forum, or you can send us a mail on editor@analyticsvidhya.com. If you have still haven't enrolled yourself for machine learning summer training course, here is the link. Please enroll now. Thank you guys. Happy learning.